By any measure, it's been a pretty awful month for Qantas. The potentially devastating disintegration of an engine in one of the new A380s with 466 souls on board spawned a global media frenzy. And that incident over Indonesia was quickly followed by a succession of other mishaps and turnbacks. And just this week, a pilot at Jetstar was sacked after criticising the low-cost subsidiary's offshore employment policy and the effect it could have on safety. More headlines, more damage control. By the end of the week, Qantas did manage to get two of its multi-billion-dollar A380 fleet back into limited service, with the boss, Alan Joyce, on board, appearing comfortable and relaxed, of course. I spoke to him before he boarded the flight to London. Alan Joyce, how do you reconcile the sacking of Joe Eakins, the Jetstar pilot, for raising safety concerns when you've always said that you would never discipline anyone for raising safety concerns?
Yeah, well, in this case, the pilot in question didn't raise safety concerns. He raised issues that are industrial relations issues related to employment in Singapore and relating to progression within the organisation, nothing to do with safety.
Well, he did say that lower pay that you're paying in Singapore will lead to safety problems.
What the pilots in Singapore are actually employed to fly for Jetstar Asia, which is a Singapore entity, flying and competing against all of the carriers in the region. And the pilots are paid quite well to be in the top few percent of the population in that country. So there's no issues here with safety. And I think in the case of this pilot, he did break the code of conduct. It was very clear what the code of conduct for the organisation is. That was broken on multiple occasions. He was given opportunities to come in and talk about why he was doing it and to correct the action. He refused to come in and talk to the management, and the management were left with no other action but to terminate his employment. There was another pilot that did the same thing, and the process ended with that pilot understanding what the code of conduct was, and he stopped the conduct. Now, I have to say, Jetstar, like all of Qantas, really takes safety reporting as a top priority. We get thousands of reports every year that we pass on to the ATSB, and a lot that we look at ourselves. We go out there and encourage reporting when it's related to safety issues. When something's related to industrial relation issues and it's a breach of the code of conduct, we're going to act in that way. And again, for the union to use this as an example and to use this to say it's all about safety is them using the safety card for industrial relations. It's purely that, yet again. It is outrageous that they keep on doing this.
Well, it's not a good look for you at the end of a series of 5 incidents. That's the problem, isn't it? You've actually had you actually seem to have a safety problem right now.
I mean, you look at what's occurred. The issue that started all of this was the issue on the A380, which involved a very serious failure on a Rolls-Royce engine. It was a new engine, and it was absolutely clearly nothing to do with anything Qantas was doing. It was an engine that didn't perform to the parameters that we would have expected. The other issues that have occurred happen in the aviation industry every day. I mean, last week, there were a couple of turnbacks, I think, that got a lot of reporting. Last week, there were 2 turnbacks, I think Virgin had, and 1 back Singapore Airlines has. It happens all the time around the industry. The first event was a serious event, but again I would emphasise it's nothing to what Qantas had done in relation to the aircraft. It was a flaw in the design of that engine.
So how much has all this cost you? I mean, it can't have been cost-free.
No, it isn't. And it's ongoing at the moment in terms of the cost, because while we've gotten 2 of the A380s now back in the air and 2 of the aircraft are flying, we still have 4 aircraft that we're working to get back into service. We also have restrictions on where we're flying the aircraft voluntary imposed, so the bill is still mounting, and when we have a firm number about what that will cost, we will communicate that.
Do you have a sense of the reputational damage separate to the cost? Are you surveying reputational damage?
Yes, we are looking at the issues about our brand, and you know, I think there's, from the research that we're getting and the feedback that we're getting from customers, there's a lot of positives in what we've done, because our customers are saying we grounded the aircraft, we took the big step to ground the flagship in our fleet, and we kept it on the ground for now over 20 days until we were absolutely sure that was the right thing to do. In the research we're doing, people are aware that this is a Rolls-Royce problem. so that when we surveyed the general population, a vast majority of people know that there's a problem with the design of the engines. And the compliments that we're getting for how Qantas handled it, how our pilots handled it, our cabin crew handled it, and how the organisation handled it, I think will actually do our brand really good in the medium to long term. And we're very conscious of making sure that people are aware of how severe and how strongly we regard safety, and that we will do whatever it takes to make sure that we maintain safety as our top priority.
And what are you doing as CEO internally to ensure that there's no common threads? I mean, you must be looking at all this and thinking, well, OK, I've got a reputation issue to deal with and a cost issue, but what do I have to do to make sure that there are no issues internally? What are you doing about that?
Well, we do. We have a very comprehensive safety management system in Qantas.
But are you changing it? I mean, are you doing anything different? This is obviously Qantas has had a safety systems in place for a long time.
But that's why I think, Qantas has the safety reputation it has, because we do look at all of these issues. We do identify what we can do in each of these individuals to improve things and improve safety. But I have to say, again, looking at them, these issues, I think, demonstrate a strong positive safety culture, because when we found out a problem with an engine that had a design issue, we grounded the fleet until we knew how we could fix the issue. And we were not going to put the aircraft back into it. That's a tick for the safety management system and the safety culture. When you look at the turnbacks, we had, I think the second issue was an aircraft out of Perth that went to Melbourne and turned back. That's a real positive safety issue, because you want your pilots not to take any risks. You want your pilots to return the aircraft to base if they regard any potential problems. The airlines to worry about are the airlines that would go on. And that is a positive in terms of how we handle it. And these issues, it's not uncommon for in-flight shutdowns to occur around the world. There will be hundreds of them that take place every year. It's how you handle them and how you manage them. These are complex aircraft, complex piece of machinery that we're dealing with. It's how the airline actually handles these events. And each one of these, when I look at them, I can see that Qantas performed exceptionally well in how it managed them.
Now, I understand you're not putting the A380s back on the Pacific route to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, what we're doing is we've decided that, talking to Rolls-Royce and Airbus, that for a period of time until we've seen how the engines perform, that voluntarily we won't operate them out of that airport, because you need to operate them with a higher power setting for the longer distance and the shorter
out of Los Angeles.
Out of Los Angeles. Now, I have to say, when you look at these engines, they're absolutely designed to do that. The engines we have a huge power setting that we don't get anywhere near when we use them. But we are being very cautious when we introduce the aircraft, reintroduce the aircraft, to make sure that we understand how the engines are performing before we put them back on LA.
But have you been testing them on the extra thrust that's required out of Los Angeles? Well,
the extra thrust has been certified on the aircraft, and if you look at the thrust levels of the aircraft is certified up to 75,000 pounds of thrust. The actual aircraft is probably the engine's designed up to 80,000. Qantas is operating at 72,000, and there's some engines out there which are operating over 100,000 pounds of thrust. So this is not an issue that we're voluntarily being conservative on. The engines will eventually be able to operate again on this route, but we're just making sure that we're very comfortable with it before we put it back on.
Thanks for joining us, Alan Joyce.
Thanks, Alan.